Good morning, everybody. All right, so was short this morning, a little blurb there, time to rest. I think that for me, it's a little common sense that things have maybe moved a little bit too far too fast. And what we've seen in the past, and look, the past doesn't equal the future, as the saying goes, but as far as basic basic things, as far as technical analysis that hold true over forever. I was going to say decades, but forever, because it's based on human nature. Um, when things move very rapidly, creating what we call a void, people become a little hesitant to pay higher prices, and they expect pullbacks. That doesn't mean pullback's going to happen, right? Uh, it means you could have a correction through time. You could have what we call a correction bar, which means it goes sideways for a day or two, and then it breaks the lows and it pops back up again. Um, but at this point, I think it's reasonable to think that prices would stall in momentum. And so we saw that happen yesterday, that little candle body on the Dow. Things didn't move very much at all. So there was like a basically, if you were slowing down, hitting the brakes a little bit to stop at a red light, um, you just slam down on the brake and your head hit the windshield, and the analogy would be. So at this point, what is the thought process? Well, what was resistance becomes support. And there's a few things here. We got a wide range bar. And so with a wide range bar, we generally just say, okay, if prices can stay, the open and the close can stay in the upper 50%, uh, that's bullish. It's positive. It could dip down. You can have, what should become a bottoming tail bar. It comes back up again. So we'll see how things progress. Here's minor support. So pulling back into here would be a reasonable, some type of retracement where we would expect buyers to step up. We'll see if that happens or whether it goes sideways here. So going sideways without pulling back would be extremely bullish. And I'll just take a peek at the internals here. We've got gas in the tank, just based on those internals for prices to be able to go up. The equity put call ratio backed off quite a bit, so that's a good thing. Remember, it was staying up there before that little dip, and the total put call ratio came to bullish, and this is just neutral here. I'm kind of surprised actually that this advance has not produced a breath move to the extreme. And we see that some of the big leaders are underperformed, but historically at the beginning of a move, and we could say this is the beginning of a move, um, breath goes from the bottom to the top real fast. And that's not happening. Now, it could eventually get there, but based on historical movements, that's what happens. It goes from, bearish, actually bullish level because things are, a little bit too negative, and then they rip right up to a bearish level, which isn't bearish, it's confirmation of the move. And these AD numbers here, you can see where they are. That is not giving confirmation of that move. So now that doesn't mean that individual stocks won't advance and do well. It just means that basically throwing a dart isn't going to work out so well. You better be able to pick the things that are ready to play some catch up or consolidated. What's necessary to do to be picking the right stocks versus just saying, hey, you know what, everything's moving. It almost doesn't matter. You buy something, it goes up, you think you're a genius. Well, that breath is not telling us that just throwing the dart is going to work at this point in time. So we've got these unfilled gaps that we're going to come back and visit over the coming weeks to see if they get filled or not. Way back here, they were unfilled gaps, and some of them got filled, some of them didn't. Like here, this eventually got filled as we had the dip down and got a bottoming tail bar. So this move up has created these unfilled gaps that everyone needs to be aware of and set an alert. They're unlikely to get filled. Well, certainly not going to get filled today, but to next week, just set an alert because at some point you're probably going to forget that they're there. So just set an alert. Let the computer watch it. NASDAQ 100, same thing. Minor support. Here, there's a gap. Here, there's a bigger gap. And so gap up, 3 days up in a row, percentage wise, whatever that is from here to here. That's a pretty big move in a short amount of time. So some stall in momentum would be a reasonable thought, and we'll just see how much that actually unfolds. We usually don't look at the composite, but it's the same story there. So we've got everything moving up together, which is great. The transports also moved up. And we talked about this, over the last year that, this year, it's not over yet, but, doing nothing for the longest amount of time, wiggling back and forth. They broke out. I suspect they'll close above these pivot highs on the weekly time frame, confirming the breakout. And that's great. The moving averages are now pointing up. So another positive suggesting the markets can go higher. SPX, I haven't even looked at the numbers yet, but we will. But there's an unfilled gap. This was yesterday. This was above 6,000. It looked like it was going to get to 6,000, and then everybody kind of waiting for the news, and it backed off a little bit. Really not a big deal. Just be aware of that unfilled gap. And let's just see where things are at here. I got to look at where the spiders are at. And basically unchanged. You can see the cursor on the daily chart, give or take. Just looking, the futures are down a titch. Not a big deal. So, okay. So it's the end of the week, of course. And you see where the big bets are. The big open interest here is at 58.15. So we want to be at 58.15. Just eyeballing that. Pretty good guess as far as where to place the line there. So is it going to get down there today? Hell no. Not unless something terrible happened in the world. So you can see there's a huge open interest there, 5 cents by a dime. These are people looking to play the lottery there, whatever reason. Interesting. I thought there'd be something big on the call side, but the biggest here is 5,800. So that's obviously deep in the money. And that's basically irrelevant, I think. All right. Mm-hmm. 60-10, same as yesterday. It could get there. I would think it tries to make a move for 6,000 today. Again, we have these thoughts about possibilities. I think it's reasonable. The market's up and maybe it tags 6,000 today on a Friday, and then we'll see if it backs off. 20. Came up a lot without much movement. Okay. So again, it's open. It's right around here. We'll see where it is in a few minutes. If it does push up, this will be a no-brainer. And there's an unfilled gap here, so I marked off this big one, but there's an unfilled gap, so you definitely want to be aware of that. All right, interest rates, not doing much here, down a little bit. Man, they've come a long way, huh? Since 22. Look at that weekly chart, monthly. It's actually a monthly chart, and then rolling back over. I wonder how many years might take to get down there. Something terrible would have to happen in the economy for that to get down there, which certainly isn't in the cards now. So here was an interesting comment. I don't know who this lady was on Fox this morning. They were talking about, everybody's been talking about why these interest rates have been going up. And basically, essentially what I said yesterday was, well, the economy is doing great, which we know it's not. So, this was going up, demand for money, or inflation and expectation for that, and people wanting a higher return for whatever they're going to lend. And she said it's neither of those. She said, she said it's just a competition where people can get money at reasonable interest rates, and this is just a competition for people to get, I guess, a competition for money to be invested. A lot of money on the sidelines, something to that effect. I kind of caught the end of it, which, like, here's a different theory about that, but I think as time goes on, we're going to see. But as you can see here, they're stalling, because if you look to the left at around 4.5%, we've got those pivot highs here. And if you go look at the bonds, you'll see that there's lows down there. And so, and then the coming week, we'll see how much they pull back or what they're going to do here. It should be of interest. And you can see nothing much is really moving here this morning. There's a little dip on the futures there, up near this resistance area. So it may kind of be a choppy day like yesterday, as the markets just digest what's happened in a short amount of time. There's no expectation for some giant pullback or anything like that. There's some news at 11 o'clock, Michigan sentiment, something or other, Michigan consumer sentiment, 5-year inflation expectations. I'm thinking, right? We're always thinking, but I'm thinking and hopeful that all this economic data that has kept us on the edge of our seats, and the next news, whatever, moving the market I hope it begins to diminish and there's less of a focus on that. No gold pullback to support here. Not much. You see some buyers stepped up at the 50. Crude oil, it's on support. It's just a mess. A lot of these oil stocks popped like everything else did. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. China, bad news. More stimulus. They're having problems, and so maybe this is something that could make the markets get rattled a little bit. China not doing so well. Silver came down kind of hard. Financials, right? Had that kind of bullish flag thing, giant gap, down yesterday, some kind of pullback. It's again, I think things need to rest a little bit. Resting isn't bad. Kind of refilling the tank after you've exhausted yourself a little bit. Big gap up. It's at resistance. Some backing and filling would be great. Home builders look like they could roll over. There's no sell yet, but there was a rejection yesterday at those converging moving averages. With interest rates looking like they may back off a little bit, the 10-year that we looked at, maybe this can move up through those. So it's not a clean pattern. Just I'm thinking about the correlation between interest rates and home builders and construction stocks. If that 10-year was begin to pull back from that resistance area, these may actually negate that topping tail. Just something to keep in mind. Biotech up at the top of the range. And so if the markets are going to become more speculative confidence, with the election, so on and so forth. We should see biotech begin to move up. Uh, Eventually, we should see, well, I was going to click retailing, which hasn't been doing too much. But anyway, IWM, which has been kind of the story of this whole thing. Uh, well, not the whole thing, of course, but, a significant move up, small caps. But as you can see, you look to the left and they're up at resistance. So, look, these things need to regain some footing, build up a little bit. And these corporate junk bonds, I think there's a bit of a muted reaction, with the Russell moving up as it did. I thought that this is kind of another measure of, speculative interest in the markets, and usually this would have moved more. So things are looking pretty good. There's these unfilled gaps. We need, I think, to see a little back and fill to refill the tank, and we'll see where we go from there. All yours, Dan.
Morning and being Friday. So my bias for zero DTE to call spreads, unless it's a compelling earnings gap. Ton of earnings again. I went through a bunch of them already. So if I don't cover one of yours, there's a lot of gap and craps. And then yeah, Greg mentioned China here. That's they gave 1.4 trillion stimulus, and they wanted more. So here's a couple. I actually had Baba on my list, not Baba, Baidu. This one I had on my list yesterday over the high. So sure glad I didn't do that. If we ever trade a Chinese stock, I give the disclaimer of that's similar to a bio. It's just, that's, this one, let's see what it does here. Just gap another gap fill here, FXI. But they manipulate. So remember this 5N it was earnings. I said if this opens flat, we're going to be all over it. And Alex, I don't know if you took off. I was asking you if it was a real company. I actually sold 25s or something. So I'm going to let that expire at full profit. Let's see here, a couple of alarms going off. OBV. I posted as a 123. Looks great. ISRG, Alex mentioned yesterday, looks great. Red bar breakout daily, buy setup weekly. Ideally, we get another inside day, and then I'll be all over this on Monday. All right, that's it on alarms. Let's go right to gappers. LCID, 30-minute high could be interesting. Little breakdown failure here with a void. Still in a nasty downtrend, so there'd just be a bounce, maybe a bounce to 260. SOLV, I guess, had an alarm. This is on my long list. It's another earnings stock. What's this? 1119, but I had it on my earnings list. Let me look. Uh, yeah, I think it was earnings because TS shows earnings 226, which would be the next quarter. So that looks great on a pullback, SOLV. I'll put that in a window. DNN. I have an alarm up here at 219. We'll just ignore it unless it goes off. This beautiful 10-minute short. Gap in a $6. Bear 123. I'd 5-10 minute low. That looks fantastic for a day trade short. Dunking was getting killed last night. The fact that it's negating the gap is bullish, but there's no pattern. Affirm, I think what's also getting killed last night. No pattern. Pins was getting killed worse. I think it was 29, but no pattern. You gap down. Square again was worse. I remember last night this thing was down over $10. So it's recovered from that, but still $73. No pattern, but it's, we'll come back to it. Cost. All right, so Don, yeah, help me out. I got a lot of potential zero DTE gap and crappers. It's still bullish, but this thing's run from 30 and now gapping to 37. And my vanilla, not chocolate, vanilla, response is 30-minute low. But the true answer is we got to see how it sets up. Redfin, I was hoping this would open flatter up a little bit. Daily, weekly, monthly are all in alignment for a bullish turn. I actually sold the 10s myself. So I'm, might take a little heat at the open. Sold them for a quarter. So as long as it stays here, I'll be fine. Munster 53, ugly gap down, but no pattern. Upstart, gap and crap. Right there. It's up 3 days, and now you're gapping up $10. AAOI, $19. That's bullish. 30-minute high. I like daily, weekly. I was trying to sell puts on that yesterday. I did not get filled. It's a buy setup, but an ugly retracement. You got overlapping bars here, but it's not quality at all. Airbnb, ugly gap. We'll see what it does. Maybe it gives us a zero DTE. So this was bullish going into earnings. So I mean, all those bulls are holding ugly losing positions. This would have been a gap and crap done if it were gapping up $10, as you know. But now it's an ugly gap. Net. We actually had the 78 puts on this, but we took our money into strength yesterday. Still would have been fine because the 78s expired today. We closed them at 50%. So this gapping down to 89. Actually, this might give us another zero DTE put spread, right? The 85s. So let's watch this. Put it in the window. Sierra Golf getting whacked. Bottom of the range, no pattern. No, Don. No. No, I said if it was gapping up $10, it would be a gap and crap. 1950, you're saying gap and go. That's not a pattern we use, but I know your style. And this 15-minute chart could stabilize for a day trade. It could, but it's way too early to have an opinion. Packs here. Wow, this thing got killed into earnings. TEM is a 1, 2, 3. Let me set an alarm at 58:20. Five in, we talked about. I'm in that, but there's no new trade there. Michael Papa looks great. It's gapping down a little, which I like. This would be an ideal after 10 a.m., taking out yesterday's high. So it's not a 30-minute high. Do y'all see the difference? Because a 30-minute high might trigger right here, 1982. But it has to take out yesterday's high, but I would like it to chop around for at least 30 minutes. So there's a difference there, because look at the weekly, monthly look great. I'm just going to set an alarm at $20. GCT, it's sloppy. It's a sloppy buy setup, daily, weekly, but I got better. It could be a put spread though. All right, Bill, gap and crap candidate. Now it's holding incredibly well. So Don, ideally, this thing will gap here to 77 and change and rally another $5. And then we can do maybe a 30-minute climactic sell setup if it continues to rally until 10 a.m. Akamai 96, that's ugly. And that's a real company. Nasty gap. ANET 402, gap in here. 30-minute high, similar to NET. If buyers step up here in this gap fill, then that could be a 0 DTE. Put spread, 30-minute high. Light, gap and crap. Don, put on the list. These are all gap and crap 0 DTE candidates. I'm not saying I wouldn't do a 7-dayer, but you got to be a lot more particular that the trend is worn out. MSI 485. Yeah, it's a big gap up $15. There's the OBV I mentioned. I posted that as a 1, 2, 3. Look, now it's gapping too big. All right, so we got to forget OBV. So cancel OBV, gap's too big. All right, shoot. I didn't see any prints earlier, and even the level 1, I didn't see anything good, and that's why I posted it. But now I got to cancel it, unfortunately. Expedia. Gap and crap. Don, I told you I got a big list. Gap and crappers today. Docs is not a good gap and crapper because it's gapping out of this powerful consolidation. Not to say it won't turn into one, just from an excessive gap component idea, but RC alarm, a little bottoming pattern here I mentioned. So RC, SATs, SATs low alarm, darn it. We have a half position of that. All right, DRH, gapping down, no interest. Look at this disaster, EVH. Man, that's a 50% haircut. What do they do? Technology sector health. Evolent Health. What the heck do they do? Could be another 30-minute high, 0 DTE. Yeah, Alex mentioned ISRG. Yeah, it looks great. Looks great. IWM the weakest here of the 4 horsemen. But yeah, ISRG looks great. I just don't trade in the first 5 minutes. TDW, ugly gap. And there's our Royal Caribbean SOLV. That's I said we can watch on a pullback. Look at all these earnings, and I already went through and deleted a ton. INOD, gap and crap watch list. It's bullish price action right now, but I'll put it on the list. Nothing there. Wow, I just had a zoom up alarm go. So we're unfortunately capping our gains at 77 bucks. I did that into elections, but I said let them take it. Let them take it. Grinder here, Sam's favorite company. Don I had on my gap and crap list. But see, it's not gapping as much as I wanted right now, but it's still on the list. Card. It's not a classic one, but yeah, gap and crap on that. Nuss was a potential bottoming pattern, but it had to get over the week's high. SPV coming in, nothing. Pod, that's an igniting gap. That is not a gap and crap pattern. That's an igniting gap over this red bar. That's a buy on a pullback. Nothing. Axon, gap and crap. Yeah, I already have it in my list. So yeah, and we just, whoever wants these zero DTEs with me. Sloppy bottoming pattern up a bit. Qdel, bullish gap, nothing. Step, gap down to the gap fill. AAON, igniting gap, bullish. MSDL, 30-minute high. Another one, 30-minute high over yesterday's high. I'll set an alarm 2025 TEM alarm. TEM. This is it's too early. All right. Message. Ugly gap. Bear Island reversal. Looks lower, but it's down too much. Nothing. Or bullish, but extended. NXE. This is not bad over the day's high. I'll set an alarm at 7:48. My Redfin. I'm flat on Redfin. So, you option traders into earnings with me. So despite this big gap, I'm break even right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and kill it, break even. All right, done. So I don't, have a headache. Do I have to worry about? So done with you. But see, that's the benefit. Well, we know the risk of selling options and earnings if you get a catastrophic gap, but the benefit is you get the volatility crush. So as long it can gap against you in an ugly manner. Exhibit A, which I'm showing you right now. That's an ugly gap. Look, it's under all that support. And I just got out break even. IEP, ugly gap, ERJ I liked. This was a beautiful 1, 2, 3. Shoot, that would have been that's a nice pattern. But I would have been chasing Fleur is an ugly gap, and that's a real company. This is a big contractor for the government and so forth. Wow, I wonder what that means for the economy. WMS ugly gap, Lamar ugly gap with no pattern, CNH ugly gap, no pattern, RBA bear gap that bullies. I love these patterns. RBA. I love these patterns. So if we get a 1, 2, 3 at 10 a.m., I like it because you got a void daily, weekly, monthly. And I'm looking for, well, there's no zero DTEs, but I'll consider a 7-day put spread right now, 85s, 0 by 135. So I'm gonna put an offer out at $1.20. Seriously doubt I'll get filled, but order some. Baxter, I said call spread. That's a closing breakdown. That could be a 30-minute low. Let me also check. Also check. Call spread. 37s for today, 0 by 45. And these guys are just friggin' nuts. All right, this solve I was watching is coming in too hard, so I'm taking that off the list. NRG too extended. MSDL, deep retracement now, no interest. AAON, I said igniting. Axon, let me check the premium. Let me start looking at some of these gap and crap ideas. There's no weeklies, but and the spreads are asinine, so I'm just going to take this off my list. I'm not going to even. I mean, it could set up a beautiful day trade short, but you gotta limit what you're looking at. A nice ISRG, Alex. Greg, you want this in the letter? I mean, now subscribers, that looks great. I was just waiting a few minutes. Yeah, upstart. That's an igniting gap. Had this open flattish, I would have bought over the high. Look at daily, weekly, monthly. That's a long-term bottoming pattern. That's I just don't chase, but that's a beautiful pattern. All right, Bill here is under the open and done. Look at the pre-market. So we have bearish pre-market action. So this one, the pattern looks great. All right, hold on, my plumber's calling. All right, light is another candidate. There's no weeklies though. And 95s are 10 cents by 40. So I have zero interest in that, but it might set up a day trade short. All right, Bill, is Bill the one I said? Spreading. I mean, that's such a beautiful zero DTE gap and crapper, but did I check? Is this the one I said? Too spready? I forget. Let's see, the 80s. No, I did not check. It was 25 by 65. So that's the problem there. Yeah, Upstart is ripping. I had that in a window. All right, net NET. Remember I said potential 30-minute high, but nope, that's gone. Tesla ripping here. Wow. Man, Alex, you nailed that thing with your victory bias. All right, we have a covered call on Netflix that expires today. Apple, beautiful 15-minute chart breakout for day trade. I know the 20's there, but I don't think it'll be a problem. That's a beautiful 15-minute chart right there for day trading, but the Qs have stalled at resistance, so I'm not in a rush to do anything here.
SMHs are coming down, financials are weakening, Nvidia is weakening, Google is weak.
We have XRT put spread expiring today. I personally have XBI expiring at full profit. So we're in FedEx, we're in Alta, we're in ELF. Those were all 3 new longs yesterday. Let me check our other opens. Oh, we also did AMAT yesterday, a half lot. Let's tighten our stop here to protect our gain. 791.48. Go in. That's came in. We still have our original stop. I'm gonna set an alarm at break evens if it bounces there. Just 26.97. And then Zoom's gonna get assigned, which is totally fine. That's it. On our advisory, we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 positions, all bullish, but that's fairly light. Look at the RBA here, you all. I had just trying to sell those puts, but I didn't expect to get filled. But I was hoping for a 30-minute high, 1, 2, 3. I love these patterns, but the trick also, well, there's many tricks. It can't be too excessive. I want it filled in the first 30 minutes, and it has to have a void on the 15, daily minimum. This has a void on all 4 time frames. Richie